And welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. This is the view from the Hammy End. I have four friends that watched the match together. We did an episode a couple of weeks ago, and this is the second episode that we're doing together. And it happens to be after a huge Fulham victory. So basically, this show's all going to be about what they saw, what they witnessed at Craven Cottage on Saturday, which was a Fulham victory. This should be fun. So I'm going to introduce each person, and that's how we're going to do the show. But before we do that, I just want to mention, because I'm trying to get the numbers up on YouTube, to please subscribe and like on YouTube. That would really help get our numbers up. So please do. If you're not subscribing on YouTube, please do subscribe. All right, guys, let's get to it. We'll introduce everyone to the show. First, I want to go to Matt. Matt, thank you for joining us tonight, and thoughts on the victory, my friend.
Hey Russ, thanks for having us on, and always nice to come on after a win. I thought it was a phenomenal performance, right? You know, we started fast, which isn't always the way. We didn't concede just after half time, which is pretty much when we tend to concede. But it was I thought it was a fantastic performance from a squad which is being tested with injuries and absentees, but felt with a bench coming on in, you know, Pereira and Muniz and Willian and even Harrison Reed. I think all of them played a part coming off the bench. It felt like we were a proper grown-up Premier League team, and this felt like a very evenly matched set of squads going up against each other. They're obviously much higher up in the table, but I thought on the day we were clearly the more impressive outfit, and Marco once again, I think, bested Nuno.
Absolutely. That's actually where I was going to go. Before I go to Alex and Kamal, I think that's a big part of the storyline coming out of this, Matt, is that 2 matches in a row against Nuno, I think Marco got the best of him. And I think the way Fulham prepared and the way they executed it, it's funny because I had said on a preview show and also on a Nottingham Forest podcast, I thought the tell of this match was going to be if Emile Smith-Rowe was going to start. I thought that would tell us that we're going to go there to dominate the ball and attack. And that's exactly what we saw, Matt. So through your eyes, what did you see the tactical difference between the two teams and how Marco got it right?
I think that strangely this season, so we've obviously done a double now of Nottingham Forest, and the away game that I thought we were quite lucky to win that game. I think it's one of the only really tight games that in a way I think we got points that we didn't deserve. I think that was probably a fair result. Would have been a draw. The Nottingham Forest fans in that game were up in arms because they played with 4 centre-backs rather than playing their wing-backs. So they didn't play Moreno at left-back at the time. He was the guy who they were typically playing. Williams hadn't yet got into the squad. And they played 4 central midfielders in across their midfield. So they just packed it with Ryan Yates and Elliot Anderson and so on. And it was in part because they were missing Morgan Gibbs-White in the first game. But Nuno tried to do something different to get around Marco Silva, and it didn't work. And they came that was at a time they'd just been Liverpool away. They'd won away at Chelsea. They on a great run, and then we went and beat them out of nowhere. This game felt like another one where he tried to be too smart to try and get around Marco. Like I don't know about you guys. I went into this game seriously worried about Callum Hudson-Odoi up against a quite, I don't know whether he's weary. He just looks a bit lacking in sharpness. Timothy Castagna, and that only happened in the last 25 minutes. And I think the best chance they had of the whole game, other than Wood's goal, was Callum Hudson-Odoi. Who cut inside and he hit it straight at Bernd Leno, thankfully. But I think Nuno got it wrong. Marco did what we all thought he would do, but I think Nuno tried to overthink it again and got it wrong again, and I'm delighted.
I am too, Matt. Over to you, Alex. I want to get your opening thoughts on the victory, and also let's throw in what we're talking about, the managers, because I think that's a part of the story.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I thought, I mean, I said last time after the Man United game that I really feel each game still matters to Marco. There was a bit of a feeling amongst some of us maybe that we were drifting into mid-table kind of anonymity with that result. And, I was still pretty convinced that there was a lot of determination to win games. And off the back of that last incredible result away at Newcastle, that's amazing. And that meant this was a big game. It was a really big game. You can really start to look upwards if we got a positive result. And we bossed them. We really bossed them. This is a really good Forest team.
It is.
I think, the only team in the Premier League, I think, to beat Liverpool this season. They're punching well above their weight, but they are packed with really talented players. I mean, I was looking forward to seeing, obviously Gibbs White, Murillo has been very exciting. I've got a friend who's a Forest fan, and he's been banging on about Elliot Anderson's performances this season.
It wasn't good yesterday.
No, exactly. These guys didn't show up. We bossed them, and they had a couple of spells in the game where I was like, oh, could they get a foothold? And they really didn't. I think this was one of the most impressive performances, probably the most impressive performance at the Cottage this season for us. So just brilliant, and all credit to Marco, both in terms of the tactics and just making sure the players are absolutely up for it, because we needed that energy.
Okay, I want to go right back to you, and then I'm going to go to Kamal, because you brought up a player that I thought was pretty much invisible except for setting up Chris Wood, and that was Morgan Gibbs White. The job Fulham did on that player was pretty good there. Matt, your thoughts?
I'm
sorry, Alex. I'm sorry to Alex. Sorry.
Fine, I have thoughts, but I think Alex shares them.
Okay.
I'm
go ahead.
The thing is, Lukic and Berger were sublime. They were great. They were powerhouses in the midfield. They didn't give the Forest players any time on the ball. Morgan Gibbs White, when he picked up little pockets, he was always having to turn backwards. We were very quick in on them, and that pairing has been brilliant. And yesterday, they were just so good. We absolutely bossed that midfield battle, and that's in big part to Lukic and Berger. Just absolute machines, beasts, winning every ball, unpleasant to play against, I'm sure. And we made a what has been an incredibly impressive Forest midfield looking extremely average yesterday. So huge kudos to Berger and Lukic. What a pairing!
Okay, excellent. Matt, that was what we call a Goldman, so that was an error in judgment. Any more thoughts you want to talk about with Morgan Gibbs White?
No, I felt quite sorry for him, actually, because I thought the team that they set up, it was really strange. Being behind our defence for the first half,
yep.
The amount of space that they were offering us to play it wide and round, they were basically sitting back. And I know that Nottingham Forest are a transition team, right? So they're a counter-attacking team, have the ball, screw up, and then we'll catch you with a sucker punch. For him, it meant he just had to work really hard trying to keep up with Anthony Robinson if he drifted over to our left-hand side, his right, or try and catch up with Castagna. But in the end, he was dropping super deep and collecting the ball off their back three. Once you've got him all the way back there, then you've just got Chris Wood on his own. And look, he proved to be exactly what he's been all season, which was a supreme target man and very efficient finisher. But Morgan Gibbs White going and collecting the ball off their back three, when it's a back three as well, means that you got most of their team in their own half when they have the ball. And that's the sign of a game plan which is working from us, and a game plan which I thought completely failed from them. Very
good point. Kamal, I want to go to you, and I'm going to throw this on the table as well. I obviously get your thoughts on the victory, and we're talking a little bit of tactics here. The one thing that really stood out for me was Fulham were balanced, meaning that they weren't heavy on the left-hand side with, say, Robinson and Iwobi. They actually balanced it out with Traore on the other side. And I think that's a big part of this victory, is the fact that they were so balanced and how dangerous Traore was on the other side. So I want to get your thoughts on Fulham being balanced on both wings.
There's finally an argument for Traore to start all the time, because he's usually coming off the bench, isn't he? So, after that performance, which I've got to admit, I was moaning a bit to Alex, who's sitting next to me, about his lack of incision amongst in goal. But I looked at the highlights, because we're watching from the other end, and so Alex is. I don't know if you're wearing your glasses. He can see just about everything that's going on here, like 10 miles away. But I'm kind of squinting, and I've got to say that, the one thing that's really going in my head is that the last time I was here, I was talking about when we did the United game, and we were all a bit gutted and, punched. We felt like we've been punched in the face when we turned up on the show. And I was looking at the highlights, and I thought, the thing I was moaning about, I'm sure you guys are going to laugh at me, is that I'm sick of Tic Tac. And I think we shook
You
it off
mentioned that.
yesterday.
You absolutely mentioned that.
And we were so direct yesterday. We were so direct. And I've got to admit, like my hair was falling out while the match was going on, because we were kind of cutting right through the penalty area. And it was like 2 to 3 touches right in the penalty area, which meant, Anthony was still doing his thing,
Yeah.
On the left, sliding in, crossing in. But we also saw ESR, working like a jigsaw, running right through the center. And I don't know, I hope I don't get any hate from my mates on this, but we were playing more like Nottingham Forest yesterday, which was right through the center. And, I love Adama. He's my man. Everybody was saying that, he's the player of the game. But for me, the one thing that really appealed to me, which I think I mentioned on your show earlier, was the steadfastness, calmness, and coolness of Sasha. For me, he's just a leader. He's become a leader in the team. He was phenomenal. He was really good.
That's a great point. Before we move on, I want to go back over to you, Matt, and then I'll get Alex's thoughts. I want to talk about the central midfield, because we were talking about on the post-match show. You could talk about how did Fulham win this match, and I think this was a key to the match for me. Could they get control of central midfield? So, Matt, I agree with Kamal that Sasha was a very big part of it, but I've got to put Berger right there with him. I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, watching it live, it's funny, almost in reverse of what Kamal's experienced, of sort of thinking Adama wasn't great and then watching the highlights and thinking he was great. It hasn't changed my opinion, but watching the game, I remember saying to Alex, Berger is just so dominant, and his capacity to take the ball and move it quickly, he really stood out to me, certainly in the first half. We're in the Hammy End, so we're behind the goal that we were defending first half, and he was just so instrumental in breaking up play, winning the battle with Danilo, who got subbed off not long after half time. But actually, watching the highlights, you see how much more Lukic does. It wasn't that I hadn't seen how good Lukic was. I thought he was phenomenal. But those two as a pairing have got a real understanding where Berger tends to come a bit deeper to take the ball. He's better on the press, I think. When he's being pressed. But Lukic's capacity to, frankly, never lose the ball, right? He gets given the ball in really tight positions, and he's not all tricks and flicks. He occasionally does those, but his use of his body and his understanding of the best pass to play in 2 touches, I think, is something that maybe Iwobi has in our team, but other than that, I don't think anyone else has. And it's a real skill, and you can see the time that he had in Italy, perhaps sort of coming through from that point of view. And he's one touch play, and he just keeps us ticking over in a way that we miss. So when Pereira steps in for him, or when Harrison Reed steps in, they have different attributes, but they're busier and they are perhaps riskier with the ball, but they're not as efficient with it.
Okay, I want to go to Alex because I want to get your thoughts about the two of them. And I know that there's a stat from this match that's interesting, because I'm glad that Matt was just talking about Lukic and his passing. He was at 100%. He was 100% on his passing.
I didn't know that.
So that's incredible. So, Alex, I know you're very big in the stats. What are your thoughts about the two of them together? I think that they work so well together, and that's why I feel so confident moving forward. I know that there's a situation with a potential injury to Lukic, and we're going to have to see how serious that is. But the two of them together, I think, change Fulham.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. They are a really good combination. Obviously, Berger is a big guy. You really notice that when you're watching him live. He's quite a unit, and Lukic is powerful too. Really, really powerful. But I think that the thing you notice with Lukic is he's so calm on the ball. They both break up play really effectively. They both cover the pitch really effectively. They cover for each other really well. As Matt said, you kind of noticed, maybe especially in the first half, Berger got a few more really important interceptions and like power tackles and so on. That kind of stood out when you're watching it live. But Lukic just goes about his business and 100% passing. That says it all, right? He just keeps the ball so effectively. And it's not like he's playing backwards passes or sideways passes all the time as well. He can be progressive. He can carry the ball. He's just been a revelation. So, yeah, what a pairing. Absolutely fantastic. Let's hope we can keep them both fit. I mean, yeah, it'd be a massive loss if Lukic.
Lukic is the professor, man. He's a professor.
Yeah, no, definitely. All right, guys, I'm just going to share this comment we got in from this Fulham supporter. It says, great performance all around, very dominant, and 2 very winnable games coming up. We owe Wolves one after what happened at the Cottage. I agree with that. Unfortunately, it's on a Tuesday night, so we'll have to see how that all works out. All right, guys, let's get to my section where I really go into before the match with you guys, because I want to get in your heads what you were thinking. So come on, I'm going to start with you. What were your general thoughts heading into this match? I actually, as the week was going on, I was getting more negative, which might shock all 3 of you because I'm very positive. But the more talk I was hearing, it was starting to make me feel that when I knew I had a very strong feeling they were going to play a 3-back, and we know that Fulham have struggled against 3 center backs. I'm thinking, this is not going to go well. But I got proven wrong, so I'm very happy about that. What were you thinking about before the match?
Well, I was picking up from Alex's and Matt's playbook, and I was checking out all the stats the week before. I didn't want to fall behind, and I was looking at what the bookies were saying, all the commentators were saying, including my mate Chris Sutton, because you know that I was on 606 a couple of weeks ago, and like having a go at these.
A couple of people noticed that. Well, yeah.
Did you hear about it? It's like,
yeah, I heard about it.
I heard about it.
They were like tourist Fulham supporters saying that there were more Man U fans inside the club. And Chris Sutton once again, saying, oh yeah, Fulham are doing really well. They're playing so well. But I think this is going to be a 1-1 or a 2-1 to Forest. And everybody was saying that. But the funny thing is the bookmakers were favouring Fulham. So, I was a little bit scared. I was like, harking back to, beating Forest earlier. I think that we were lucky to get that winner, but I thought it was going to be a bit more of a stalemate. I also noticed that the thing about our team is that it's become what Marco's done. He's put a lot, like when he first joined, he didn't have this muscularity to the team. And I was looking at Chris Woods when he scored his goal. He literally elbowed. I think it was.
Was it Jedi?
Yeah, he just elbowed him out of the way, and it's like, oh my god, the guy's so strong. But I look at our team now, and I think our team can physically compete.
Oh yeah,
and
that's a good point.
Yeah. But I've got to admit, I don't know. Looking at the others, I'm not sure that everybody was hyper confident. Everybody was excited, but these two. I mean, Matt. I was looking at Matt, and he was focused on the pitch like he was Yoda all the way throughout the match. So I was thinking, he must be computing this quite a lot. So
I thought it would be close, right? So it was nowhere near as close as I thought it was going to be, but I predicted a 1-1 draw.
Okay.
I think we're in a pretty good spot at the moment. We're in that strange place, and I think to the comment that came in earlier, if we win the next 2 games, and I think it'll test the squad in a different way, because I think suddenly there'll be a bit of pressure on us. Realistically, given the other fixtures coming up for the teams above us playing each other, if we win the next 2 games, I think we'll be 6th. Which at that point you start to get a nosebleed, and then the pressure becomes a very different one. And then we've got Brighton away, and if we win that, then we're probably 5th. And you can see that we'll panic before this game. Like, I was well up for it, don't get me wrong, but.
Right.
This felt like a real, if we lose this, Nottingham Forest are 3rd, no one's going to die here. We've got the FA Cup to focus on against a pretty shit Man United.
Matt, do you reckon we're going to panic? Do you think we're going to panic?
I think definitely got capacity to panic, yeah. If we're 5th with 10 games to go, which is what the scenario I just outlined.
It's possible. Yeah.
Would be, I would panic. I'd absolutely panic there. Like I would expect us to then lose the remaining 10 games of the season and just fend off 15th, just below Everton.
Okay, this is why I need Matt on the show. Thank you. This is exactly why I need you on the show. Alex, I want to go to you. What were your thoughts heading into the match? Were you feeling a little bit nervous like me as the week went on? Like I said, I was feeling worse as the week went on. When I got to the day of the match, I convinced myself that we were going to probably get a draw, even though I was still predicting a victory. I predicted it 2-1. I got it right, but in my head, I'm thinking it's going to be a draw.
Good work on the prediction. I mean, I like Matt. I thought this would be a close game. Like I was convinced we were going to be competitive with Forest, despite how good they've been. I didn't think for a second they would blow us away. I really didn't expect us to dominate the way we did. I mean, I don't know if anybody's done that to Forest this season. Maybe Man City. I know they beat them 3-1. But not many teams have done that to Forest. Forest did have extra time in the cup in the week, I think, and penalties against.
Do you think that was a factor, Alex?
No, well, I don't know. I mean, they certainly weren't full of energy against us, and teams go through dips, and I mean, maybe there was a little bit of that. You can't have watched that game and said, "Oh, Forest were great." They really weren't. So they weren't the side that. But we should take some credit for that, right? At the end of the day. I'm sure Fulham's energy and the way we used Iwobi and Adama, the accuracy of Adama's crossing, all of these things played a factor and made Forest just kind of we just bested them on the day, right? But they weren't great, let's be honest. But before the game, I thought it was going to be a close thing, probably a draw. Maybe one team would just nick it by a goal. That's what I thought, and but definitely didn't expect it to be anywhere near as one-sided as it was. But also I was thinking after that Newcastle result, again, there's a possibility we can look upwards, and Matt's dream of that European Conference League could be back on. So,
I hope so. I want you guys on a European journey. I want that.
Yeah, exactly.
I want that for you guys. So I'm glad that it could potentially still be on it. I'm going to share this with you guys, and I said this on the post-match show. If you now look at the pace that Fulham are on points-wise, they're on 59 points. If it ends up being that way, it's 59 because I did it this morning. So think about that. We're right on pace where we were halfway through the season.
Yeah,
we have not changed it at all. We are right on pace for 59 points, which I think would be incredible because that would be history for Fulham in the Premier League points-wise. So for me, that just keep that in mind. We are really doing well, and I think we get lost in going from match to match.
Just on that point as well, I am loving the current trajectory of Chelsea. When you put that into the mix, I'd love to see a little graph of what's happening with us and Chelsea, and long may that continue. If we ended up ahead of them, that would be brilliant. So
absolutely. All right, guys, let's talk a little bit again about Forest, and I'll go back to you, Matt, in a second. But I want to go back to Alex. I want to get your thoughts on this in a little bit different way. When we're heading into the match, and you look at the two teams, and we talked a lot about this on Cottage Talk already, but I want to get your view on this. Why is Forest where they are, and why are Fulham where they are? Well, I want to get your view on that.
I mean, Forest, obviously Wood has been a major factor. I mean, nobody predicted he'd be banging in the goals the way he is. He's been a pretty consistent striker in the Premier League over a number of years now, but he's absolutely smashing it at 32? So, he's a huge factor. Sells has been absolutely massive in goal for them. And again, yesterday, actually, it could have been 4 or 5 if it wasn't for Sells. Some really good saves. It was, two players obviously playing for Forest that used to be Fulham players, Aina and Williams, and in the wing-back positions. Both players I really liked at Fulham. I think they were great for us. And so, I've got a soft spot for both of them. So good to see them back and good to see them losing. So that was nice. Yeah, I mean, Forest have got a great mix. Like, we were lucky Hudson-Odoi was a little bit injured, I think, so he was only on the bench. But that Elanga and Hudson-Odoi, great pace down the wings. They've got a good balance to their team. Gibbs White is skillful. He can open up defenses. Elliot Anderson, I think, will go on to play for England and have a really good career, in my opinion. That defensive duo in particular, I know there's three centre-backs, but the duo of Milenkovic and Murillo have been, completely touted all season. So they've been brilliant, and we should just say, well, we made them look ordinary. So absolutely.
We did.
Yeah.
We did.
Brilliant stuff.
Kamal, your thoughts on Forest heading into the match? Were you thinking like me, because I was fixated on why are they where they are and where we are?
Man, I didn't understand. I kind of just think it's a puzzle. It's like one of these, it's a Karate Kid scenario. You got like this miniature team that kind of spent more than Fulham did when they were going up. And we thought, oh man, we better call the receiver in now, like halfway through the first season. And I don't know how. I mean, Nuno's made something crack inside of that. It's amazing. And the one thing, I mean, I'm bringing up my comments from a previous Cottage talk, is that I think Fulham were not the same Fulham in this game. They have transformed in the last, particularly I think the United game, set them back with some kind of impervious guilt complex where they say we're not going to let this happen again. And you remember I was, watch my language, was yanking on about how they can't just come to life in the last 6 minutes of the game. And the crazy thing was that all the way throughout the game, they were like playing. It was like the last 6 minutes.
In control.
Look at this. I'm just looking at the stats, and I know it's a Guardian. It's 24 shots on goal compared to 8 by Forest. And I mean, that's just incredible for our team.
I can't even think of the 8 for Forest, to be honest with you. I can think of obviously a couple, but beyond that, they really didn't have that many opportunities.
Yeah, I think somebody can't count there. There's no way they had 8 shots.
All right, good stuff. Matt, over to you. We've already talked a little bit with you about Nottingham Forest, but anything else you want to share?
No, I think I said to Alex actually during the game, they felt like this sounds a disparaging comment, but I meant it in this instance in a good way. They felt like a bit of a meat and potatoes team, and that they've got 5 people that defend. They've then got another 2 in front of them that defend, and then the rest of the team are there to attack, right? So you've got Elliot Anderson, who I wouldn't, class him just as a defensive midfielder. He and Danilo are both very talented. I just think on the day they played 2 quite similar players in Berger and Lukic, and Berger and Lukic had the better of them. But they've got the same setup as we have, right? They've got Morgan Gibbs-White is Emile Smith-Rowe, and I think, on the day, both of them had quite quiet games. I mean, Smith-Rowe, I think, gets a lot of credit for trying a few different things. I think he was braver on the day. And then, a right winger in Callum Hudson-Odoi, who they were missing, and, our one, Adama, did brilliantly. They ended up sacrificing Hudson-Odoi for the 5 at the back, which I think, I just think Nuno got it wrong. But they basically got a bunch of attackers who are pretty impressive, and Chris Wood is phenomenal. And it just felt a bit steady. To me, they turned up to defend and then see what happened and make us make a mistake. And I respect that as a game plan, but it didn't feel befitting of a team that are 3rd in the league. It felt very unambitious, and I think they got what they deserved.
Well, let me ask you.
If I were a Nottingham Forest fan who'd come down from Nottingham on the day, I'd have been really disappointed by the lack of go forward and of bite and of threat that they carry to a team that, our last home game, we lost to a completely average below average Manchester United team that are 15th in the league. And so,
no, good point. I want to ask you this part. Do you think that they're predictable?
Nottingham Forest. Yeah, I do. I think the strange thing is the goal that they scored is a situation that I was perfectly happy with, which is if there's one central defender that in our team, or one defender in our team who you want in a one-on-one with a big lumbering striker, it's Calvin Bassey, because Calvin Bassey is so strong and most strikers get no change out of him. That shot was one of only 2 that they had of any real threat, and it deflected in. I thought everything else they did, we had a plan for. They got nothing really out of Elanga, even though I thought he looked quite impressive, but there was no threat of any end result. And I think as soon as you can close down the space for Gibbs-White, which Berger did, as we discussed with Lukic in tandem, I think they were completely nullified. And it was only when they changed Morato, I think, came off, who was the 3rd centre back, came off for Hudson-Odoi, that actually I thought they looked a bit more threatening.
Right.
But we as they did that, I thought we continued to carry threat, which was really important. We didn't entirely go into our shells towards the end of the game.
No, we'll talk about that when we talk about both halves. Definitely want to get your thoughts on what you guys saw. Real quick on this, the starting 11. I know you guys don't go really deep into it, but Alex, when we were talking on Cottage Talk, I really made it a point to talk about the style. I thought if Emil Smith-Rowe was going to start, that Fulham were really going to try to probe and try to find openings and try to take it to Forrest, and that's exactly what ended up happening. Were you surprised by the starting 11, or was that what you thought was going to be?
Yeah, no, absolutely what I thought it was going to be. The only things really up for debate would be Pereira for Emil Smith-Rowe potentially,
Right.
but Emil Smith-Rowe's playing a bit better lately. I think he's starting to show more for the ball, which is really good. You can see his confidence is building. It was a good shout, so that's fine. You could argue Anderson's starting to look a bit dodgy. His passing, which is usually so reliable, he's looked a bit flustered on the ball against United. His passing was absolutely dreadful. So you could start to bring Diop into the equation. But I think for now, it was absolutely the right call. It was, it was great. I mean, obviously, a big factor is the bad news since we last spoke is the injury to the Welsh wizard Harry Wilson. It's going to be quite a lengthy injury. But again, I was saying this before that the depth. I think Nelson's kind of had a setback as well with his injury. So, but I'm not at all worried if we've got Adama and Iwobi on the wings. They're two great players. They're really, really good, and they complement each other really well. Like you've got that dynamic down the left with Robinson overlapping, Iwobi, intelligent use of the ball, and Adama was just brilliant, powerful. His crossing was sublime on the day. I mean, that ball for Emil Smith-Rowe's goal is just perfect. Left foot. Absolutely pings it. No questions. It's so full of confidence, which he just sometimes isn't. He can look a bit ponderous, but he was really on it. And so I think absolutely the right starting lineup and paid off. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm going to go back to you, Kamal. And the one thing I do want to add, because we're talking about Adama Traore, I have a feeling Nico Williams had some serious nightmares last night about Adama Traore because he just did a number on him. But I want to get your thoughts on the starting 11. Come on.
Well, the funny thing is, I think in the last few minutes I went a bit wild because I said, the bench we have now, I suddenly feel I'm looking at the bench and all those players on the bench, and they have to be on the bench, means that we've got a pretty good starting lineup.
Yeah.
Because we had amazing players on the bench. We had Reed. I mean, for me, it's Fulham All-Stars, and I was going mad in the last 5-10 minutes. I had a friend of mine who was sitting next to me, an American dude like you, and I was trying to explain to him, what every player was. And then as I was going through it, I kind of understand that, we had Sessegnon, Willian, who's... There's Alex is going to get mad with me. That back kick he did just in the last, oh my God, my eyes popped out. And I felt like a little girl. I did watching it. I'm so glad this man's there. And but just looking at that bench, Harrison Reed, Muniz, Kearney, Pereira, Willian, Josh King, who's wonderful, and Diop and Sessegnon. That's our
pretty
bench.
Good. It's pretty good.
That's just incredible.
Yeah. We have that now, and that's what's great. I know you guys were talking, Alex was just mentioning about the injuries. I actually just saw a picture of Reece Nelson. I believe he just had surgery, so I don't think we're going to be seeing Reece Nelson back. That's unfortunate, but I think that's why you saw Fulham bring Willian back, and I think Willian can still offer Fulham something. I think Ryan Sessegnon can offer Fulham something, so I want to mention that as well. Matt, over to you. Any thoughts on the starting 11?
No, I thought the 11 picked itself. Really, I have a bit of a theory on the bench that he's using at the moment. But but before that, I think the only thing which I hope I never have to find the answer to is what happens if there's an injury right now to Castagna, and if I had to make a tweak to that bench, and I adore Josh King, I think he's a big part of the future. I have to, unless Harrison Reed is the answer, which I think he probably is. As a right back, because he did a season there for Norwich 7 years ago when he was there on loan from Southampton. I would want to see Devon Tanton given a spot on the bench, probably instead of Josh King out of that lineup. It's either King or or Kearney, and I think Kearney offers more control. Josh King is someone who effectively is Josh King or Willian for the last sort of role on the bench. But so I'm a bit nervous still that we're a Castagna or a Bernd Leno injury away from 14th in the table, and we're happy with it. So my theory on the bench is that bear with me. In rugby, so rugby is a very, very physical sport. Test rugby, the use of the substitutes bench is a science unto its own. And the South Africans are the double reigning world champions, and they have a thing called the bomb squad, where the bomb squad are you're allowed 8 substitutes, and the typical or traditional thing is to go 4 or 5 of them would be forwards, who are the big units. Yep. And 3 will be the backs, who are the fast guys. And the South Africans go 7-1, so they get 7 of them are the big units, and 1 guy who is going to be able to cope across the back line. And they bring all 7 on at once, and they call them the bomb squad. And I think we've got a version of that now to finish games off, which is Muniz, Pereira, and Willian will come on for the last 15 minutes of the game. And I think their combination work and their capacity to finish a game is something that we'll see done as a set piece effectively, where we'll get to 70, 75 minutes, depending on Willian's fitness and depending on the state of the game. And I think that's going to become a new pattern. And we sort of saw it yesterday.
Right.
I think that's going to be a new thing. We've got a Fulham bomb squad.
Oh, I like that. What do you make of bringing on Diop late in matches the way that he has in certain matches to finish off games, Matt?
I think 3 things. 1, I like Diop, and he never lets us down, really. I know he's got the odd error, but 2, it tends to work when we do it. But 3, I don't want us to do it because it's what Scott Parker used to do, and I still have the scars.
So do
Diop coming on in the Maxime Lemarchand, let's close up shop role. Yeah. I mean, Russ, watching that on TV for that, those Scott Parker seasons, I don't know how you did it.
I don't know how I did it either. And it's funny because I keep talking to supporters of Burnley, and they're feeling it, but they're winning. So they're in
the same place as us. They hate it, and they get it. They hate it. They got 12 clean sheets in a row, and they're disgusted by it.
The football is atrocious to watch. I tried watching Burnley, and I just had flashbacks.
Don't do that.
I know. I have flashbacks to us. I can't do that. And the Bournemouth supporters are right there with us. We've all gone through it. I've tried to convince the Burnley supporters of it. I think they're coming around to it, but they just want to get back to the Premier League. And I
mean, that's the thing. When the manager is doing okay for your club, I'm reminded of where someone once said of President Trump when he came in the first time round. Even though they didn't like him, they said, like, if you're on the plane, then you're rooting for the pilot. And I think that's where Burnley fans are in that same spot, right? They hate it, but he's the guy in charge, and at this rate, they probably will. I mean, they may not, but they'll probably get promoted. Grim though it'll be.
Okay, I've had enough talk about Scott Parker. Before we get into talk about the match, I'm curious about the atmosphere. I know that I believe it's been reported that they had over 27,000. So, Alex, how was the atmosphere?
It was good. I mean, I've got to be honest. It didn't feel like there was quite the buzz there sometimes is before the game to me, or just as I was coming into the ground. I don't know why exactly that is. And Forest weren't as loud as I was expecting. I thought they'd be buoyant and jubilant and whip up an atmosphere. There were times in the game where it was a little flatter than it has been. You can't put my finger on why. It was a grey old day. I think it wasn't the best weather. But the players, kind of by about the 20th minute, I think they'd kind of really got us behind them again. So I think they take a lot of responsibility for building the atmosphere because on the day it did feel a little bit flatter than usual, I would say, before the performance really came through and stoked the crowd up.
Okay, excellent. All right. Coming up next, I'm going to talk to the guys basically about the match, and we'll end with man of the match. Okay, guys, let's now talk about the first half. Just going to call it the halftime discussion, what you talked about at the half. So let's just get to your thoughts on the first half. Kamal, I'll start with you. Fulham dominated the play. I wasn't expecting them to dominate the way that they did and have so many opportunities. They should have been up, 3-4 to 1 at the half.
Yeah.
So what were you thinking at halftime with it being 1-1? And just overall thoughts on the first half?
Well, the first thing I was thinking is whether I should go and get my Bovril, because I've been drinking it for like 20, 30 years there. But I decided to hold put and just kind of like soak a bit up on the stand. I thought, it's crazy. I'm more emotional at these guys. These guys are real like analysts, but I'm very emotional. And you have that fear. We can do everything right, and something bad is going to happen to us. It's just going to slip. And I thought, this is what I was thinking. I was thinking that, we, the Gibbs White, the Chris Wood goal. I thought, how could that happen? Because we were so fully focused. And, after the United game, which was just like horrendous to get through, I was thinking, and I'm sure a lot of Fulham fans think that this is very Fulhamish. We play beautiful football. We cross well. We like playing in from the wings with like the fastest winger on the planet, but something's going to go wrong. And, the mindset, the one good thing about this match is that he made an effective change in outlook. And I know, the atmosphere, I can kind of see what Alex is saying. I thought the Forest fans were loud, but I was looking a lot at the players on the touchline because they warm up in front of us. And I was looking at Marco. Marco was going mental. He was like double Marco mental through this game.
Okay.
If he was, what was that game? There's that beat 'em up game. He was like a contestant from that beat 'em up Tekken. He looked like a Tekken fighter, at like at various parts of the game, like really jumping on the touchline.
I think
making sure that they did it. He said, "Do it! Come on, want to see you doing." He was really screaming and waving his hands around today, which is
Marco gave a real. So the first 5 minutes, the only player, ironically, given that I think he went on to be our best player, who started badly actually was Traore. So he was quite good going forward, but he offered Castagna absolutely nothing in terms of defensive cover. And there was a stoppage in play. I think one of their players, had a twisted ankle or something and ran it off in the end. But they stopped for 30 seconds. And because Adama, his position was right next to Marco, right? If he's being the right winger, and Marco tore into him about 5 minutes in, he grabbed him. He really tore into him. And from then on, for the rest of the game, to his great credit, I thought Traore's tracking back. Yeah. And, we saw it perfectly with Murillo, running through. And Murillo is such a strong and fast runner. And Traore made up about 5 yards on him, muscled past him and got fouled and laughed at him as he did it. And it was joyous. But Marco, Kamal's right. Marco really was tearing into the players. I mean, I think that the really low-key shout-out I would give in terms of leading our team yesterday was Raul Jimenez. I just thought his continuous passion and desire to try and chase down everything and get on the end of everything.
Yeah.
I've always been a bit of a sucker for when I'm watching the games back to see which of our players show real delight when we score, and it always used to be Harrison Reed was always the guy who loved a goal, a Fulham goal. Whoever scored it, Harrison Reed was the main guy to celebrate. Raul Jimenez lately, and he used to be great. We score, but it wasn't me, and I'm a striker, so I'm kind of like a 7 out of 10 happy. Now, any goal that Fulham score now, Raul Jimenez is all over it, which I think it shows that he's in a good place. If you watch the header that Calvin Bassey scores again, you'll see Jimenez who gets the flick. Do it, he's absolutely delighted.
He did like this.
And then, exactly. And then, with Emile Smith-Rowe, Raul Jimenez comes running in and just hoofs the ball into the stand is, an absolute delight. It's great to see. And you think about the redemption arc for him of basically being a player that we all signed thinking, I mean, if this guy is, even anywhere near the backup to Mitro, then we're still scraping the barrel. And not only has he been a backup to Mitro, he's been the replacement to Mitro. And we're here 2 years on, and I think now we've got to the stage almost where we're looking at next season, and I don't think we need to sign a new striker right now. I would get one more season out of Jimenez with Muniz as the backup, and I think we've got bigger problems elsewhere.
Okay. Right back to Matt. I want to get your thoughts on the goal. Now, I know you're at the other end, but we talked about this on Cottage Talk. What a team goal. This might be the ultimate team goal. How it all gets set up. What kind of view do you get of the goal? Our goal.
So when you're in the ground, you don't really think, wow, we've had the ball here for whatever it was, 19 passes. And I saw a thing on Twitter where the only person to not touch the ball in that move, so it started with throw and it went all the way around the pitch, back across the centre backs, back up the left, across, and then Jimenez out to Traore into Emil Smith-Rowe. So the only player not to touch the ball, including Leno, was Sander Berger. So everyone else got a touch. I think the two things to me that stand out about it, beyond just how everyone clearly now understands their role, are one, as Alex says, the Traore delivery is, frankly, it's incredible, right? If that was a Liverpool player, if that was Mo Salah, we'd all be saying, well, that's what Mo Salah does, isn't he incredible? And it's Adama Traore, and we got him on a free from Wolves, and they were kind of finished with him, and everyone was like, where's this guy going? You know, he'd done a couple of loans towards the end of his stint at Wolves, and they hadn't worked out. The other thing, and I'm far from his biggest fan, but I do give Emil Smith-Rowe a lot of credit for making a run beyond the striker. I think when I last came on here, I said our biggest problem is that we don't have players that make the run beyond the striker.
That's right.
And yes, he heads it in from 5 yards out, so it's not a hard header, although he does everything he needs to do. But he's making a run in at the far post, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for that.
Yeah,
I thought he was 7 out of 10, which is 2 points up from his normal performance. And you know, improvement is good. So credit to him.
I thought he was much better in this match. I'm glad that you gave that to him, Matt. I appreciate
I'm willing
that.
to concede.
He's willing to. I love that. Alex, I want to get your thoughts. I do want to give you, unfortunately, the goal we gave up. We've already talked a little bit about it. You guys probably got a good view of this. I know it's unfortunate. I know that part of it, but we talked about on Cottage Talk that this is also not great defending. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely not great defending, but I think it was extremely unlucky. Like, you know, I've watched it back. When it happened in the flesh, it did seem like it was one of those moments where you're just like, oh, wow, Wood is a beast, because, you know, these Fulham players are just falling around the place while he just, you know, gets the ball and puts it in the net, and it looked pretty impressive. But when I looked at it back, I mean, it seems to bounce off his heel, basically. He doesn't mean to control it, and he kills it dead somehow. You know, the Fulham players don't know where it is. You know, fair enough, Robinson bounces off him. I think if that was Bassey, he wouldn't have bounced off him quite in the same way. And then it was a massive deflection. So I do think there was a hell of a lot of luck involved in that goal. It was one of those moments where you just go, oh, wow, you know, Chris Wood, fair play. This guy is on fire this season, because it just felt monstrous watching it in the flesh. You know, it was just kind of came from nowhere. Players banging off him, and then bang, puts it in the corner when they just haven't created a chance in the whole game. It just felt like, wow, that's kind of impressive. But looking at it back, I do think it was more luck than judgment, a lot of it. And you know, it comes off his heel, it kills it dead by accident. Big deflection. I think Leno would have got it, basically, without a doubt. In the ground, we did question whether Leno should have got there anyway, and I think probably not actually with the deflection. I don't think he had any real chance. So yeah, I think in a way I would point to that goal as well and just emphasize how impressive the whole performance was, because you can feel sorry for yourself in those moments. You're playing third in the league, you've dominated, you've scored, you've given them nothing, and you're going in at halftime level. You can feel sorry for yourself, and they did come out a little bit more energized. The first 5 or 10 minutes after halftime, you know, was one of their better spells in the game.
Sure.
So I think, you know, it's all the more impressive that when you look at that, the overall domination of the match, and we had to deal with that moment, which was, I think, more luck than judgment in hindsight. So yeah, I think it's all the more impressive, really, that little catastrophe happened. We're stronger.
Okay, I'm going to go right back to you real quick. I'm going to go around with the three of you. How confident were you at halftime that Fulham were going to win this match, Alex?
Yeah, I mean. So there's two sides, right? You've watched that half and you've gone, we were by far the better side. If we do that again, we're going to win this game. And so there's part of me that's absolutely confident. My brain was going, we're the better team here. We're on top. We're going to win this. of course, there's that little emotional thing where you go, how the hell are we drawing? And does this mean we're going to lose? so you've got that duality with the experience. But yeah, my brain was pretty convinced that we could go on from there. We were the better side. We got them where we want them.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Kamal?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, Alex, I was getting very angry in the second half. It's just not good enough. I say, Adama, you put him in front of the goal 1,000 times, empty goal, and he's always going to miss. And I was just getting very emotional. But it's because I know they can. I know we can do better. I know that and the sum of the parts is greater than the individuals. They're just incredible. There's the other thing I was going to say. I hope it comes across right. Is that we've got. I was looking at our players. We have so many different players who speak different first languages. And this is like a first, they've all been together roughly for a year. So the comprehension, understanding, communication was better. And Matt's bomb squad, he was talking about Jimenez, Muniz, and William. They're Brazilian. They all come on, speak Portugal. They all aspire to play for the Brazilian national team. There's a camaraderie. And what kind of gets me, it's not gives me confidence, gives me hope, is that we have a team that now seems to play for each other. And what I was going to say when we conceded the goal, when the Woods goal, you should have seen how hung up and upset the players were. I think Robinson had his hands on his hips.
Yeah.
He's like, how did that happen? And then you could see, I think, who's it? You had William and Muniz and Pereira on the sidelines, just looking. They weren't running up and down, keeping on. They were just stunned. And so you're not going to, it's so good. I'm happy when I see that, because if you're not going to get upset about, the bad things that happen in a match, you're not going to play as a team. So I didn't think we were going to get beat, but I thought we might just be, Adama Traoreing the goal all the time. I mean, we might need Guardiola to come along and have a few words with him about goal coaching again. But I was kind of, it comes with being part of a Fulham fan.
Sure.
You allow yourself to get upset because you're going to go home and not worry about it, because what do we expect? We're only Fulham,
Well, maybe that's going to change a little bit there. Kamal. All right, let's now talk a little bit about the second half, and then we'll end with talking about man of the match. Matt, I'll go to you. I want to give you the honors about talking about the winning goal. So you probably got a good view of this. What did you see?
Honestly, from where we were, it looked like it was going over Bassey's header, which is so weird because on TV and in all the replays, it doesn't look like it was anywhere near going over. I guess because it traveled for quite a long time before it reached the back of the net, and but it was a fabulous move. It was very reminiscent of the goal that Jimenez scored from a corner against Bournemouth earlier in the season, which actually I think Pereira was the taker there. But that was a near post corner of the 6-yard box glance. In this instance, Jimenez, big flick to the back post, and there's Bassey to nod it home, having for once got rid of Olaina, who was very good defensively on the day. He was one of their players that I guess we noticed more because he's former Fulham and he's potentially available on a free transfer. But, he was good, and Bassey managed to lose him. I thought it was a great goal. I think the thing that really stands out for me about that goal, though, is how happy everybody in the squad was.
Yeah.
The celebrations were genuinely euphoric. I think part because it's Bassey, and you can tell from all the social media stuff that you see from Fulham that Bassey is probably the big personality in what is quite a personality-heavy group.
Yeah.
And so everyone was just super happy for him to have scored. That was great. But also because I think the first goal scored in the second half was always going to be key. I think if they'd scored it, Alex's point on us, creditably not letting our heads drop, I think our heads would have dropped if they'd scored it after such dominance. But once we scored, I mean, we all felt, and really we should have gone on to win 3 or 4-1.
Right.
And it felt like we were going to win the game from there. to me, but the ground was so happy and euphoric, and the substitutes, it was the same group that Kamal observed were sort of so miserable in our concession, were the first people to greet and celebrate him in our ascension. So it was a great thing.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Alex, over to you. I want to take it from that goal, because what's fascinating about this is that they make the change. They changed their formation, and they're looking a little bit more dangerous. Callum Hudson-Odoi is now on. He had a shot, but that was about it. Beyond that, Fulham were in complete control. We've already talked a little bit about the substitutions, how they probably made a nice factor in this victory. But what did you see from the goal on to Fulham seeing this out? Because I got to tell you, the final minutes and in stoppage time, Fulham were in complete control.
Yeah, absolutely. So a few really positive things about that. They didn't sit back on their laurels. They didn't go, all right, we've got something to defend now. They understood that they'd been the dominant team throughout, and they thought, let's just carry on with this. The other thing was that bomb squad, we want to call them.
Yes,
or whatever.
I love that.
Absolutely miraculous. I mean, they were like little samba 1-2s. They were all playing with a smile on their face. It was a thing of beauty. I've got to be honest, I wasn't sure Willian would be up to speed. He's not played much at Olympiacos. I thought he might be a little bit rusty. It's still 2-1. I was thinking, can we afford to bring it on? He was absolute class, just oozed class. So calm, composed on the ball. Him and Pereira always looking for each other. That move where we nearly scored, the finish from Muniz is actually quite poor, but it is just beautiful. It's a thing of beauty. And we were playing with a real swagger at that point. A real swagger. Those three were so much fun when they came on. Really, really brilliant. And Harrison Reed chipped in as well. And he obviously nearly scored with a follow-up of that move as well. But if that would have capped off, if that goal had gone in, that would have capped off an incredible performance. And we deserved that goal, because that moment, it was just so beautiful, the little flicks. So good. I mean, maybe Willian should have shot, but when I saw it back, I was like, no, he did the right thing. It's just the finish wasn't great from Muniz. Absolutely brilliant. So, I'm just excited to see that kind of Brazilian flair back in the team. And it's really great because those guys trust each other with the ball. It's the same when Kearney and Willian play together. You can just see they totally trust each other when they used to play last season. Always looking for each other, and the team just can't get a look in. They just kind of constantly find space for one another. Absolutely brilliant to play around. Willian is obviously a football genius,
yes,
and the players recognize it. So they trust him with the ball. They make little runs around him, and he finds them. And I think that's going to be an incredible addition to our squad, and incredibly useful for games like this, where we can just instead of chucking on Diop and trying to hold out, we can just kind of take the piss and prove we're just better than the other team with our Brazilian skills. It's all good.
Okay, fantastic. Kamal, before I go to you, I just have to let Matt know that I'm probably going to use the bomb squad now on a regular basis. So thank you. I'll give you credit for this, but I am going to mention the bomb squad. So thank you, Matt. All right, Kamal, I want to get your thoughts, full-time reaction once the whistle blows. Obviously, you must have been elated. Give me your thoughts. That's how we're going to end the show, and then we'll go to man of the match. That's really how.
First, I just want to know how Matt pulls out a Jimenez a goal from Bournemouth, which is like 6 months ago. I think he must be wired up to AI or something. I just don't get it. Just incredible. He should be the analyst of the week on that. Full-time reaction. I don't know. I was just very excited. I felt like the team had come back. I think the team's going to play like this for the rest of the season.
I hope so.
I think that Marco's learnt his lesson. For this is the thing. I mean, we can Parker sit back and defend, but Marco was doing that a lot. He was pulling back, and in this game, even when we went 2-1 up, we were looking for a third. He kind of realizes and trusts his team and knows that his team can keep playing attacking football even when they when they're in a hearty position. And I'm always looking around at this the stadium. What's his name, that dude that was on the 606 shop who I was slagging off a couple of weeks ago, saying that tourist supporters, they were the fans. I know Alex said it was flat, but I think maybe it's because Alex was very nervous, pent up, and shaking, overexcited. I think the fans were just so energized.
It's great.
I've seen so many times, and Hammy End is the worst. It's like a sieve. If we're like a goal down, we've got 6 minutes left. Half the stand will empty. They really vote with their feet, and they're really, passionate and angry supporters. So yeah, I was overjoyed. I think everybody was overjoyed. I think that it's the second time Wallow has seen a victory at Craven Cottage. So we managed to see a smile on his face, and it was kind of a profound moment, because I feel that it could be a watershed. It could be a new Fulham. Yeah.
It could. Just to go back to you, and before we get man of the match, I'm glad that you brought up. Well, maybe this is how Fulham are going to play the rest of the season, Kamal. Can they do that against Aston Villa? Can they do that against Bournemouth? Can they do that again against teams that are going to have or try to dominate the play? Brighton and Hove Albion. Can they do that? Kamal.
Can Matt answer that? Because
I'll let Matt answer that one. Matt.
The thing with Brighton is it doesn't matter how shit we are, we win. We always win at Brighton, even though they're often the better team. Mano Solomon with probably the ultimate smash and grab.
Oh, that was fantastic. Yeah.
So whatever happens at Brighton, they hold no fear for us. I mean, they are owed a result against us. I think for me, so I recognize everything that you guys say. I think the flatness before was because we were in serious danger of being the definition mid-table. Anonymity, no risk either way, right? We're not going to challenge at the top. We're not going to be anywhere near the bottom. The results yesterday of Brentford winning, of Brighton winning, we needed to win to stay relevant at the top. And Villa drawing at home to Ipswich, and immediately they start sliding down. Newcastle losing, and suddenly we're only 2 points behind Newcastle. Who
That's right.
It feels like only 2 weeks ago they were third and we were 11th or something. So I don't know how that fourth and 11th. I don't know how that's happened, but we now have this horrible pressure, right? Where I hope Marco can spare the team from it, and I think they can deliver as they have done in the last couple of games. Amazing win at Newcastle, amazing win against Nottingham Forest. We can beat Palace at home. I think they're a really good team, and I think they're a problem team for us in terms of their physicality. Mateta is like a fast version of Chris Wood, I think, and his goal ratio and record over the last 2 seasons is much better, actually. So in the prolonged period, he's got whatever it is 28 goals in 42 games or something, which is nuts. And they got Eze and they got Munoz, I think, is probably the only person I've seen be a better athlete on the day than Anthony Robinson in the battle in the game they had last season. I thought Munoz that's the thing to watch next week. They'll cancel each other out, I think, and hope. And then we got Wolves away. And, we got absolutely shooed by Wolves somehow. Mateus Cunha was incredible, but they scored wonder goals and we missed quite easy chances. We owe them. Going away from home holds no fear for us. So I honestly think we can win the next 2 games. And if we win the next 3 games, then that will define our season. So this, that's Manchester United, and then we're into a quarterfinal in the FA Cup, and we will be 6th in the Premier League with 10 games to go. And that is a hell of a season.
Okay, you're making my head explode there. I don't know if I can handle that much, but thank you for sharing that. Guys, before we wrap up the show, and this has been an excellent show. I've enjoyed the shows I've done today. They've been fantastic. I want to get your man of the match. Let's go around. Alex, I'll start with you. I'll share what mine was. It was Adama Traore. Who's yours?
It's Adama Traore. I think there's a few contestants, Lukic, Berger, and Bassi, all absolutely excellent. Everybody played well, but those 3 are genuine contenders, I think. But Adama, definitely sublime, brilliant, dangerous throughout, excellent crossing, so much fun to watch. Smashing Murillo, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, 10 out of 10. He's a hero, legend.
Fantastic. Okay, we got another one for Traore. How about you, Kamal?
Do I have to pick one? Do I have to?
No, you don't. You don't have to pick one.
Yeah, right. This is it. Alex has been knocking me all weekend. Pushing me into a corner. for me, it's like, everybody's Traore. I was like moaning about him a little bit. I was a big bogey man. But if I can say this, without sounding corny, I know that the guys over here will kind of like think I'm getting a bit like arty. Is that I think it's not a play. I don't think there's a player. I think the man of the match was the team.
So it's a
yesterday.
team man of the match or team.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Kamal's such a philosopher, isn't he? I'm gonna go Adama Traore.
Okay. There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. It's Adama Traore, or in Kamal's case, the team. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. That's fine. No worries. We are in agreement, the three of us, and Kamal goes with the team, which I actually respect. So we all have our opinions, guys. We've gone over an hour. This has been a tremendous show. I hope you've all enjoyed it. I want to get final thoughts from each one of you. First, I'll go to you, Matt. Final thoughts before we wrap this up.
Everyone needs to stay fit now. We can't afford, we're an Adama Traore injury away from actually having a problem, or a Castagna injury away from having a disaster, or a Bernd Leno injury away from just calling it quits for the season. So let's try and keep everyone fit, get some of the injured players back, and we've got an amazing opportunity. The next 3 games will define the whole season.
Okay. Over to you, Kamal. Final thoughts.
Everybody needs to stay calm, especially me and Tony Gold.
Okay.
And I don't know. I think it's just, I've not, since we've come back, it's just another exciting season at the club. And,
It's been great.
I know one of the great things I've always loved about your show is that you're not scared to put the boot in. I love it. But I'm waiting to see how you will react at the end of the season, because you call out when there's nonsense going on, you call it out. But I think we're kind of peaking out, and for me, it's the development of a team. I think I don't think the worst thing is that he does so well. Marco does so well. And
I know where you're going on this.
I won't say it, but
No, don't
really
say it. Don't say it.
All right.
I know. I saw some stuff written today about Spurs, and I don't want to talk about it. That's for another show. We could talk about it another. We'll worry about that at the end of the season. However, I will say, I did predict 7th before the season began. Let's see if I'm going to be right. Let's see if I'm going to be right.
Take that. Take that.
I will take that any day of the week. Alex, I'm going to give you the final word here.
Yeah. I would just say that, yes, these next 3 games do look winnable, but I think one thing to bear in mind is the Premier League. Every game is really difficult. Wolves absolutely outclassed Liverpool today. Deserved to win the game, I thought.
They did, absolutely.
Just deserve a draw. They're going to be very difficult to beat, and Palace are a good side. And what I think the last 2 games remind us, because we lost to a terrible Man United team, absolutely useless Man United team, and then we went away to Newcastle and beat them, and we home against Forest, one of the best teams in the league, and beat them. And I think if you look at our fixture list up until the end of the season, that April period, I think we've got Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea. You got that tough period. But I would say what this team is showing us is that one, they've got resilience. So if we do slip up against Palace or Wolves, I've got faith that team, so long as we don't get those injuries that Matt has, quite rightly pointed out, could absolutely scupper us. But that team has the character to come back and win games like those ones that look not so winnable. So I don't think we should panic if we do drop points in the next few games. I think it's about consistency, being competitive every time. And we've shown that Forest game, shown what this team is capable of. And so long may Adama reign with his great crosses.
Okay, excellent. Great show, guys. We've gone over an hour. And before we wrap up, I just want to mention this to you. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but we have a pretty good live audience. 210 people are watching live with us right now, and that's a testament to you guys. So I just want to say thank you to everyone that has watched live or watches or listens before or after. Just thank you for listening and watching Cottage Talk. I really appreciate it. But we will wrap this up. For Matt, Alex, and Kamal, I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk, part of the Talk Sport Fan Network.